Yeah.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Mark.
Hope everyone had a nice lunch.
Yes.
So I'm joined on stage by some awesome panelists this afternoon. I won't do justice introducing them myself, so I'm going to let them introduce themselves. I'm going to start down the end there.
Sure. Before we get started, how about an all-women panel, which I haven't seen in a long time, besides from you, Pierce, obviously. Sorry. But hi, guys. I'm Zoe Glade. I'm the VP of Digital Marketing at the American Cancer Society.
Hi, I'm Jen Hoyer. I'm the Director of Corporate Partnerships with the Nature Conservancy.
My name is Laurence Lombart. I'm with Doctors Without Borders. I'm the Director of Corporate Relations.
Great. Linda Rogers with Heifer International, and I have the longest title, so my apologies. It just means I manage lots of different stuff, including corporate partnerships.
Great, and hi, I'm Amanda Lepof. I'm the Executive Director of our Corporate Fundraising Programs for the American Red Cross.
Great. Well, thanks, panelists, for being here this afternoon. We have an hour for this panel, and we had some great questions submitted ahead of time. So we're going to kick off with some of those questions, and then I'm going to put it out to the audience for some questions a little bit later on in the session. So please, whilst we're asking the first sets of questions, just think about what questions you might have for the panelists, and then we've got microphones around the room here, and hopefully we'll have some great questions from the audience. So let's kick off with one of the questions that was submitted, which is, many millennials have already started their giving journey. How are you attracting millennials? And let's kick off with Zoe to start answering that.
So, I don't know most of you in the audience, but what I am not going to do is sit up here and lie to you and tell you that, millennials are our core donor. They're not. It's women ages 40 to 54. But that being said, as an organization, we're currently having to recruit the next generation for the future success of what we do. And so historically, at the American Cancer Society, we have the largest peer-to-peer fundraising event in the world with Relay for Life. And what we've seen is when we first initiated Relay for Life, it was a peer-to-peer Raise Our Way event. It's this box solution that you can take into your community and raise money for a cause that you care about. And over time, with the introduction of organizations and platforms like GoFundMe and CrowdRise, Facebook fundraisers, we're seeing a lot more millennials raise money for causes they care about in their way. And so our job at the American Cancer Society and what we're doing in this digital innovation space is to make sure that these millennials have the tools that they need to do what they want to do. I don't care if it's go on a Manolo Blahnik run in Saks Fifth Avenue in New York City, but if you're going to raise money for our organization and our mission, we want to make it so that you can do it the best way possible. And the interesting part about this trend is peer-to-peer fundraising it's not changed, it's still peer-to-peer. It's just the genesis of how that's coming to life for consumers is changing. So peer-to-peer used to be like me saying, hey, Pierce, hey, can you donate to my organization? I've been touched by cancer and I really would love you to donate. And you could never say no to this wonderful face, so you would say yes, right? The difference now is that I'm doing that and tagging people on Facebook. And so as an organization with all of these nonprofits, you have to evolve with digital transformation, and that's what we're doing.
How about others?
So we're doing two things. We're engaging students and creating student chapters in universities across the country. And we've seen an incredible amount of enthusiasm for our organization and getting them engaged in having their own fundraisers on campus, providing them with the toolkits and giving them access to some of our field workers and the work that we do. And that's really spurred they're not millennials, but they're emerging Gen X or whatever the other generations are. And then the other category, or the other way that we engage them, is through gaming and the streamers. And our biggest fundraiser during the year is Summer Games Done Quick. It was referenced yesterday, and actually Doctors Without Borders is the recipient of over $2 million from gamers around the world that are streaming through Twitch. And they're super enthusiastic as well, being able to give through something that they're really passionate about.
How about you, Jen?
Yeah, similarly, I think a number of ways that we're kind of reaching that next generation, that next audience similar to yours. It may be kind of the up-and-coming Gen Xers, or it may just be, families. A lot of that we're doing, through our corporate relationships, getting that ability to reach these audiences that we probably couldn't reach otherwise on our own. The new pipeline, the folks that are interested in, for instance, the purchasing power that they have and the decisions that they make through their everyday life choices. And if it's, I love Tom's shoes, which I do, and I'm wearing them right now. I bought them because I love them, but I also bought them because I love the notion of that simple purchase, that thing I want to do anyway, is enabling something good to happen. And so we're looking at the right partners and the right brands for us to help reach that next generation too.
Have any of you changed the way that you enable millennials to give? Because back in the old days, it was always go to a website and donate online, or you write a good old check. Millennials, they've got their phone in their pocket, and so have you made it easier for millennials to donate through different technology?
Yeah, I can probably answer that. You're not going to change a behavior. Right, so to change a behavior, would cost billions of dollars. Like Coca-Cola can't even do that. But what we do is make sure that the technology solutions that we provide are seamless and frictionless. So what we've done at ACS, and panels are tough because you don't have slides to present, and usually you have all these good things that you kind of can take notes. But what we've done is we look at the consumer behavior of everyone that's donating, millennials specifically, and say, what are they using to transfer money back and forth? So we've been doing some tests with Venmo. We've been using, so again, you think about your phone as what, at the 80th appendage, whatever it is that the guy said earlier. You're using your phone to do banking. And so when you think about Bank of America, Wells Fargo, they all use check grade scanning capabilities. And so what we've done is we've actually taken what the banks use and integrated that into our mobile app, so that when someone does want to donate, all they have to do is scan a credit card or scan a check, and it's done. And so again, it's like this seamless, frictionless interaction in terms of how you're fundraising and donating to the organization.
Got it.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add is one of the things, and I'll admit that we're very early on in this journey, is shifting a lot of our messaging and materials to more of a content marketing focus. So recognizing that millennials don't have the same loyalty patterns to organizations. They tend to have them to causes. So they're not going to ever search, I don't want to say never, but they don't search for names of organizations. They search for causes that they care about. So how are we part of the zeitgeist of the conversation? How are we being part of that dialogue? So issue or content first and organization second. That's very scary to do, because we don't know what that means, for brand loyalty and things like that. But we are certainly seeing our content show up in more places. It's more shareable, because it's not always a story about a recipient of ours and the impact that they've had, but instead starts with an issue like water, or poverty or hunger or whatever, and then how are we helping to address that solution?
I see.
Can I add one thing? Sorry, you're going to kill me at the end of this, I know. But if you guys don't have the funds to create an app and maintain an app, which is very expensive, some things you can do, even in a website, make it responsive, add Apple Pay, add Amazon Pay, add any type of thing that makes it easier for consumers to donate without having to enter information on their mobile device.
I would just add one other thing to that, is just thinking about millennials are now in the workforce, right? And so, we're still seeing workplace giving being such a big driver of revenue. Campaigns are getting bigger and bigger, and millennials are now contributing to those campaigns. So one of our successful technology platforms is creating microsites for our corporate partners, where they can then go out to their employees and have them donate through that platform. We can track the donations and report back. And I think the other thing we're seeing with the millennial audience is, of course, volunteering is very important to them, and they're looking for micro-volunteer opportunities. They're looking for things they can do, with their family, with their friends, at their desk. And that's really challenging us to be responsive to that trend and that demand, and figure out how we can be a little bit more creative in knowing the door they might come through is that volunteering door, and how do we create and serve up the right volunteer opportunities to engage them.
Great, thanks. So let's move on to another question. How can nonprofits innovate and take risks without compromising donor dollars? Who wants to?
I'm happy to start. So I think we've probably all been thinking a lot about innovation, hearing Dan speak yesterday and just thinking about how we can be more innovative as an organization. So I think 2 points on this. So first is just when we are talking about our cases for innovation, is really making sure that we're doing our homework as the nonprofit executives and building what is that business case, what's a realistic assessment of the amount of resource we'd have to devote to this new idea, and what's a realistic ROI that we could expect out of it. So I think we can't let ourselves off the hook. We've got to do that business case, we've got to do the analysis and make sure that it is a sound idea. And then secondly, I think there are a lot of donors who are very interested in investing in innovation, and I feel like probably once a week I get that phone call that's asking, I want to fund something new, I want to own something, I want to help you innovate, and oftentimes we struggle to respond to that. So I think if you do have this bank of innovation ideas, serving those up and matching those up with the right donor who would be really interested in that type of investment could be a great way to help the organization embrace and pursue those innovation ideas.
Yeah, I think the thing I would add is if you think about all of the new tools that are available to us. I mean, it used to be when you wanted to try something new, it was a multi-million-dollar investment if you were going to do a national direct mail campaign and try something new. So now you can try things for relatively cheap amounts of money through social media and other digital platforms. So it's given and you get feedback almost real time. So it's enabled us. So Heifer has a very large year-end giving. That's probably about 75% of our fundraising occurs in the last quarter, which means we actually use the rest of the year to experiment and pilot and try new things. So we're not putting sort of that core revenue driver at risk. We'll actually innovate around those things in the rest of the year, try new things to figure out what do we want to deploy during the holiday season. So it's really important to just understand you don't have to have a lot of money. Try something crazy. We were talking about things like Snapchat filters. I'm not going to say I've had great success with them, but try them out. They're not that expensive. If you have an event, try it out, see if you can educate some people, create some shareability content. And I think the other thing I'll just highlight for Heifer is we found it was very difficult to think long-term innovation, so really big ideas. So like what's the next $50 million idea in fundraising while also having the short-term pressure of a fundraising goal for this year. So we actually have what we call Heifer Labs, which is a very small but core group of people who do not have a fundraising goal. And their entire job is to reach out, identify new opportunities, test them, pilot them, fail, and fail fast, so that they can learn on the things that we know won't have that immediate return on investment. But it is hard to balance that when you have that very looming short-term goal for the year.
So, sorry, Laurence, go on.
That's okay. So I think engaging your colleagues who have a vested interest in some projects that could be innovative, and then I think of myself as a matchmaker. And the companies that I'm interacting with, I know what their skills are, what they can offer, and what they can bring to the party. But then if I bring in like a colleague of mine who has skin in the game and who has like an interest in a project specifically, and then that company has a volunteer program. So some companies require that some of their employees donate 20 hours a year. So it's part of the evaluations that we take them up on that and make those connections. And we've had a lot of innovation that's been created out of those partnerships within our organization. And when you have your colleagues involved, you get a lot more buy-in for corporate fundraising. Another thing is that we have something similar to your labs. We have the transformational, what we call the TIC, Transformational Investment Capital, and that allows for us to do innovation on scale, and anybody in the organization around the world can submit ideas and apply for these grants to bring their projects forward. So finding those donors that will invest and donate specifically for risk-taking and innovation will take the weight off of the others, yeah.
At Amazon, innovation is kind of in our DNA. We try to ensure it is, and all the teams are encouraged to think big. And we have standard customer working backwards process that starts with a press release and FAQs, and the new product idea is written in a press release as if you would read it in the New York Times, and it's a really great way of making sure that you're thinking about the customer viewpoint from the very beginning. But building a culture that encourages risk-taking is super important too. You need to ensure that people on the team don't feel like they're going to be penalized when it fails, because you're going to do 10 crazy ideas and 9 of them are going to fail for sure. So you've got to build that culture that encourages and embraces failure. So long as you can fail fast, as I think you said, Laurence, you have to ensure that you're not beating the dead dog, and have the right mechanisms in place. Any other comments on this one before we move on to another question?
I think culture is the hardest part.
Yeah.
I mean, ACS is 105 years old, and going from this conventional organization to try and be more innovative is very difficult. We're not even there yet. But what I've tried to do on my team in the digital space specifically and within marketing is we apply a 70-20-10 rule to everything that we do. So in terms of the budget that we get, the bandwidth, the thinking, all of that, 70% goes to the tried and true, what we know is going to drive revenue, what we know is going to drive our mission. So that way everyone feels like, okay, I'm driving the business, I feel confident in that. 20% is the things that we've maybe tested, but we want to scale, or we want to try and pivot and do something different. And 10% is, I have this crazy idea, I think that it makes sense from a business perspective. I've put some voodoo math together to try and figure it out. Let's test something. And what that does is it gives people security that they're driving the business, but it breaks down barriers so that they can actually dream without hesitation. And I think that that's really important from a cultural perspective. And then making sure that your entire organization is educated, meaning in the digital space and innovation, what that looks like. So if everyone has a 101 to 201 level of understanding of digital, it makes them more comfortable with those things like innovation. So we had we have bi-monthly digital talks with our C-suite to just help them understand what the trends in the digital space are. So when we say chatbot, they actually can visualize it and understand how it can drive our business. And that's really, really important. And that's something easy that you guys can all do. Maybe not with C-suite, but with leadership. Have lunch and learns, have one-on-ones where you can help solve problems with someone else in the organization and create those relationships. And that's the most important piece, again, from a cultural perspective.
Great. I'll ask one more question, then we'll ask the audience. So get ready with some great questions. And building on the concept of innovation, what do you see might revolutionize corporate fundraising for your organization? Maybe Laurence, do you want to kick off with that?
I'm glad you asked that question because I'm really passionate about it. I think that the last day has really set the stage for that question. And Dan yesterday speaking about how we're so invested in our insecurities of like having our pie chart and our overhead slice being so small, and donors asking us how much is going to overhead. I don't want it to go to overhead. We have these conversations a lot. That we're sacrificing technology. We need help in maintaining our technical edge. Those are huge investments. And what Scott talked about yesterday about planning for the back end and then the siloed, having integrated systems and front end, back end, that is millions of dollars of investment. So what you do to your overhead, it just blows it out of the water. So we need to find companies and donors who are going to invest just in that risk-taking, in that marketing, in understanding that is going to propel us into doing more with our programming and being able to provide the KPIs that they're asking for as well, that we're not able to do very basic business and analysis because we're so strapped with the technology we can't keep up. So yeah, you can't just have it like a handover, but and have it be free, but I think that there is a way for the companies and especially corporate partnerships, corporations, to come in and bring in their ways of doing business, how they innovate, and come in and help out. I think that seeing Dan's slides yesterday, it was the second time I've seen this presentation, in addition to the TED Talk. And his first 5 slides, we are 1.5 million nonprofits in this country. And since 1970, we haven't moved the needle on poverty, on mental health, on homelessness. And what's going on? Like, are we just doing the same old thing? We've got to have like a think tank and some brains power to like have companies that are going to come in and say, we got this. We're gonna commit to working with these nonprofits that are focusing on these issues, on that issue, and we're gonna invest so that they can put like our business savviness and our business skills into to the nonprofits that need it. Liquid expectations is also something that plays into this. I mean, you know, Uber and Netflix having this quick response, we need to be able to be there as well, and we're struggling to catch up. And finally, companies in the volunteering that they give is like they want to be part of a day of caring, so that one day a year they can feel really good that they're contributing. That really is, that's just a drop in the bucket. Being able to really fully make a commitment. There's some companies who do sabbaticals, but we need somebody who wants to go to the field or somebody who's going to like make an impact to make a commitment of 9 to 12 months. So if companies will support their employees who are really eager to get involved, I mean, they're so hungry to have meaning in their lives, to spend a year or two to like really crunch out this problem for us and bring their brains to the party and focus on maintaining our technical edge, I think would be great.
Yeah, and I would just add to that too. I think as you know, those of us whose roles and responsibilities, you know, are in this space, the dollar is not the end-all be-all. Like, I think we have to be smarter too about the asks that we're making of our donors or our corporate partners. You know, there is an unprecedented amount of value in the Nature Conservancy, you know, working with Amazon or Microsoft or Apple or Coca-Cola or PepsiCo. Like, pick an industry. For us as an environmental organization, you know, if you use a natural resource, if you impact a community, you know, if you can improve efficiency, we can benefit from all of those areas of expertise. And so, you know, what my team has really been focusing on is, even when it comes to our own individual goals for our team at the organization, is trying to get people within our organization and our partners to understand the total value of a relationship. It's the dollar amount, hard dollar facts. It's also, you know, advertising opportunity. It's access to eyeballs. It's educational opportunities. It's in-kind expertise in technology and strategic planning. And so I think sometimes we don't think creatively enough about our asks, because the total value coming back from any relationship isn't just the dollar in the bank. And I know that that's what a majority of us really get pushed for. But you know, what I found is that the more and more you bring employees into a relationship at a company or a donor into a relationship, the more and more their heart grows and gets attached to your cause and what you care about, the more it becomes their cause, and the more they can see too how their business can benefit from that interaction with your cause, and from that the money will follow. And so that's one of the kind of aha moments that, you know, we've really had as an organization over the last couple years, is that we really have to be looking at kind of the full spectrum of every relationship, because we were leaving a whole lot of value on the table by not thinking creatively about the expertise that those relationships bring to us.
Yeah, I think the thing I'm personally really excited about, and maybe because I'm a nerd in that respect, but I'm personally really excited about the common language that's been established through the SDGs, through the United Nations, because I think it has given us the ability to talk about our missions in a way that other people can relate to. So it's a common language, they're common goals, common outcomes. So we have been doing a lot of work to map everything that we do against those SDGs, because that allows us to go to companies that have publicly signed up and said, I'm supporting this SDG in this way, to say, and here's how the work that we do can be part of that program for you. So it hasn't yet translated, but I think that has a revolutionary possibility to translate into conversations with everyday consumers and citizens. And that's where I think you're going to start to see that work go with the United Nations, is really start to do that. And I think what it does is it changes the nature of the conversation from incremental improvements to long-term outcomes. We were very focused on incremental improvements. Somebody increased their income 25%. That's awesome. They're now able to send a child to school. They can feed their family. But the reality is they're still sitting in poverty. And so we, you know, our mission is to end hunger and poverty. So if we truly want to end it, what does that mean for the people that we serve? So we've established living income benchmarks in every community in which we operate to keep an eye on that kind of end goal, and then make sure we can talk about that in a way that others can relate to. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of really interesting and different conversations that involve things from impact investing to volunteerism, et cetera, is it's opening up those avenues and conversations because we can now talk about it in language that everyone understands.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. And I think, too, if you think about it from the private sector, now you've got these kind of guiding points that everybody is kind of pulling toward. And so you have a less fragmented, like, more dollars and more impact going out to a bunch of different little things, but now you may be able to be driving more intentional, bigger, more strategic amounts to some very specific areas. And I think, too, when you look at the SDGs, I think that provides an opportunity, too, for every one of our organizations to make a difference in every one of those buckets. So for the longest period in time, the Nature Conservancy, when we would go and talk with a company or a partner, oh, you're in the environmental bucket. And it's like, no, we do a lot of education, we do health and poverty, life improvement. And I think that's another thing as kind of fundraisers and marketers, is to think about, where your issue touches down in every single area of a person's life or every single area of a business's kind of goals, and not just a bucket. I think that sometimes.
Great. Let's put some questions out to the audience now. Who's got a question for the panel? Yes.
Hi, guys. Just curious to know what innovations you're working on technology-wise this year that you're most excited about.
I'll start with one that's it's just a little nugget of an idea right now, so we'll see where it goes. But similar, Linda, to what you were saying in terms of having innovation labs, we have a technology innovation lab. So we have a chief technology officer who's been in this role for about a year now, testing a lot of concepts, failing fast, deciding what we can move to market. So we've been talking about our home fire campaign, where the Red Cross is going essentially door to door and helping low-income, vulnerable people install smoke alarms in their homes, and teaching them that they really only have 2 minutes to escape their home if there's a home fire. People think they have much longer. So encouraging them to have 2 different escape routes, to understand, how to get out if there could be obstacles in their way. So I'm really excited about looking at VR and AR and see if there's ways that we can bring that into our home fire campaign. Maybe it's helping people see a simulation of what would it truly be like to get out of your home if there's a fire. It could be something as simple as for training our volunteers on how do you install that smoke alarm. I think there could be some really neat applications, and I don't quite know how it's going to come to life yet, but I'm really grateful that we now have this innovation lab, and we have a chief innovation officer who I can take that idea to and use his expertise to help us explore it. So maybe next year I'll have something exciting to talk about with that.
I remember when I went to see Scott Harrison at Charity Water in his New York office, they have this like VR experience where you can put on the headset and be in Africa with the lady going to get the water and seeing the dirty water in the pool. It was just really impactful. Yeah. Others?
Yeah, we've done a couple. Hey. We have 2 kind of innovations that we've launched this year. The first one is our chatbot. So we worked with Facebook to launch a chatbot for the HPV vaccine this year. So it's live now through the end of August. It's a pilot, and some of it is using AI, and some of it is using natural language, and some of it is using more of like a matrix response. Basically, our goal was to understand if some of our moms on Facebook wanted to get information in a different way than going to our website, and would they feel comfortable getting that information about the HPV vaccine through a Facebook chatbot. So that's currently live, so you can go check it out, follow American Cancer Society, and message us. And the second is, you saw a little bit from St. Jude around how they're creating experiential moments. We, along with Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, did a VR experience with their child life nurses. So the idea is, about a year ago, we read an article that virtual reality eases the pain when soldiers were coming back from war that were getting skin grafts without any extra. It was this very fancy test, but it's on the web. And so we're like, wow, how could we do something with our hospital systems and see if we could do that when these kids are getting port access. I mean, it's an awful experience for these kids, and it's painful sometimes, they're anxious. And so we supplied all of the headsets and content to these child life specialists and taught them how to use them. And so as we're doing a study right now, a clinical study right now with them, but they actually started using it in end of life as well. And so these children get to swim with dolphins as things are not going as well. And it's been really, really interesting, and we're kind of working on some of those studies right now. So those are the two kind of bigger things that we're working on to kind of push that digital tech innovation.
Cool. Got another question over here, mic number 2.
Hi. This is a kind of marketing / fundraising question. So Dan mentioned what happened with Wounded Warrior Project. I run a veteran support nonprofit called the Coda Support Foundation. So in terms of managing, if something goes wrong and the brand goes wrong or whatever happens, and managing that both digitally and in your fundraising, what happened for other nonprofits in the veteran space is that there was a segment of the donors who just said they must all be fraudulent, right? Not that I think WAP was fraudulent, but there was this narrative then that came from that hurt all of us. Right? I think there are some people in this space who like to see the big dog come down, but in the end, it actually hurt all of us. So can you all talk about any of your experiences that you've had when you've had to deal with that type of thing?
Yeah, I can speak to that. I mean, what's the sexual misbehavior in the humanitarian aid that's been in the headlines this past year has been something that has affected all of us in many different ways. And when it first came out in February, starting with Oxfam, we were blanketed and all included in that, but we also felt a solidarity with Oxfam to what they were experiencing, because we are all at one time or another going to be subject to some scandal and some brand risk, not brand risk, but brand damage. I think the best thing that you can do is being transparent with your donors, being proactive in calling them, letting them know that this is what's going on and this is what you're doing about it. We've had some very painful conversations with donors and reaching out to them, and they really appreciate that you're being honest about it. And if you have a good enough relationship with them, they're going to base their judgment based on that relationship they have with you. And look, that's what happened with one of my donors. I don't know if you saw the news recently, and there was some news in the BBC that put us in a negative light. She's like, oh yeah, I saw it, but I didn't think anything of it. That's not been my experience with you or with the brand. I mean, is that what you're experiencing on day-to-day level? I was like, no, it's not. But I gave her the talking points. We have mechanisms in place and all that. Like, you had other donors that were like, well, I guess your mechanism doesn't really work if So we're challenged, but we take those things very seriously. We really are hard on ourselves before anyone else, and we try to fix it and try to make it better. So that's all I can say is be transparent as much as possible and honest with your donors.
I think we've had a similar experience where, the Red Cross is a big target. I think distrust in large public organizations is really high right now. And we've kind of taken an approach of defend. So we put out what our side of the story is, but not extend the story. And so we do, go to our donors. We might post some myths and facts on social media. We make sure that we've got, our side of the story on our website. But we don't try to make sort of a bigger story of it, or we don't try to publish, a counterpoint or something that's just going to fuel the fire, and, keep the conversation going. And I think similar to your experience, we've found that our donors who we've taken the time to have the conversations with have understood, and, we've been able to keep their trust in the organization.
We actually at the Nature Conservancy went through a whole process probably about 5 years ago where we developed kind of a whole approach and principles to corporate engagement. So we follow those, we provide them to the companies that we're working with and the brands that we're working with the first time we sit down to have a conversation. They're on our website. We have a pretty intense due diligence process that we go through as well. So when things like that tend to happen, or if something goes a little sideways with one of our partners or anything like that, it gives us another leg to stand on and saying that, look, we've done deep due diligence. We've looked at everything from reputational risk reports to the financials of the company to how they interact with customers to how they interact the whole way down their supply chain, and we do all of that ahead of time. So it can't prevent things that happen. Things happen, but it also kind of gives us a sense of like when something does happen, we know we've done everything we could possibly do, that we've gone into the relationship with the best of intentions in a very strategic way, and things happen, and so to your point, being really transparent. But for us, I think we feel safer knowing that we've really gone deep on every one of our relationships so that we're prepared for that just in case.
And I think the key there is something will go wrong.
Yeah.
It will always go wrong. We no longer control all our messages, and I work with celebrities and digital influencers as well as corporate partners, and you have no idea what they're going to say. Absolutely not.
Or what they're going to wear, because we worry a lot about what they're wearing.
We have a longtime supporter celebrity who called the Pope a Nazi at one point while she appeared on the cover of our direct mail piece, so that was great. They just do things, right, because they are their own brands and they are passionate about it. And we have to recognize and understand that as we start to do more work with millennials and Gen Xers, they are also their own brands. And so the way that they represent your organization when they are doing peer-to-peer and other areas isn't necessarily going to be the way you want your organization to be represented. So there's a little bit of just letting it go a little bit and just accepting that there's risk associated with it. You have to step in when it's really important, when it's a very big partner, when it's a high level of exposure, but at the same time, not trying to control all the message, because it's never you don't get to control it anymore.
We have another question from the audience.
That actually relates to what she was just saying about influencers. I guess that is a trend now in approaching influencers, and I wanted to know from each of you like what your approach is and connecting with them and then acquiring them to speak for your brand or your organization.
Do you want me to start? Because I brought it up.
Yes, you brought it up.
Sorry.
I mean, it says it in your
You have
title.
influence.
I do. It's in
You have to
the
start.
title. God, I need to get rid of that. So I will be honest in saying we're still relatively early on in this space of digital influencers. We think of digital influencers more as, in some ways, paid advertising. So we're not. I think the days of finding, you can still find passionate advocates within the digital space to do organic messaging, but the reality is it's a bit of a pay-to-play game right now. And so we just think of it in some forms as a means of advertising. There's a lot of really great networks out there that you can work with, and they'll find the influencers that make a lot of sense. And then the other thing I would do is you can also, if you start to look at some of your most passionate supporters, you can look at things like their cred scores and things like that to identify the influencers you already have. So you may not realize, I'm always personally shocked when I find out somebody has like 3 million followers. I'm like, really? Who are you? Never heard of you. But they're famous in their own right. I don't have 3 million followers, so follow me.
You will tomorrow.
I will tomorrow. So I'd say, mine your existing donors and try to better understand those, but then also just recognize in the digital influencer space, you sometimes got to pay them. So.
And maybe going back a little bit to what Jen was saying with, really mining that full corporate relationship. So, I sit in the corporate fundraising space, so I don't work with our celebrities or other influencers, but it's oftentimes a component of our corporate fundraising asks if they're supporting a campaign or, a specific event to see who that corporation might have relationships with. It could be a celebrity, it could be, you know, a sports sponsorship, a concert, or some type of entertainment venue, and seeing if they're willing to tap into that. Maybe they can gift you one of those celebrity appearances as part of the package, and, you know, really leverage that piece of the relationship to help with your goals as well.
I think influence can also be defined in many different ways. You know, I could influence Jen. Taylor Swift could influence Jen, just whoever. I figure. It could be a blog, like a Something Navy, or a blogger that's really active on Instagram. And so it really becomes about personalization. And so one way to think about it is you may have a pyramid. At the base of your pyramid, you have all of your fans or advocates. So for the American Cancer Society, we have 2.5 million volunteers. Imagine all of those volunteers having a conversation about the American Cancer Society. They're our biggest influencer network. We just have to give them the tools to speak about our brand in a way that makes sense across different channels. In that middle piece, it's almost like you have that pay to play, Linda, like what you were talking about, which is I may be an influencer of some, but not all. Right? And so it may be a blogger that you follow, or a coach, or whatever that may be. And at the top of that funnel, you have your celebrity ambassadors, some which you can pay, or some which may have a connection to your organization and may want to do things for you for free. It's very easy for them, or whoever manages their social media, to put something out for your organization. Create a fundraiser on Facebook. I mean, imagine if Justin Bieber created a Facebook fundraiser for one of your organizations. It would, you know, scale very quickly, but you may have small micro donations. But that's the way we kind of think about it, is that pyramid. And depending on how we want to influence our audience, we tap into those accordingly.
Thank you. We have another question over here, mic number 3.
Yes. Can you share any successes that you've had through your Amazon Smile program and promotion marketing?
Thank you for asking that question, because that was going to be my next question.
Good.
We talk about, I talk to the Amazon Smile team quite a bit about how can we work more closely with charities, and what are charities doing really well to promote the Amazon Smile program. So is that your question?
Exactly.
Perfect.
I'll jump in. One of the things I was shocked to realize, and I guess I shouldn't have been, but I learned from my Amazon team that 25% of the people who have followed us or subscribed to us or favorited us have never made a qualifying purchase on Amazon Smile. That would include several of our own executives who, when I shared this fact, they're like, what are you talking about? You just purchase things on Amazon and it automatically happens. No, it doesn't. And so I'm super excited about the mobile app.
Yes.
So wherever David and the team are,
Thank you.
So part of that, so we created a series of videos and education, trying to educate our donors. We pushed those out on digital. So we just started that with the most recent Prime Day. So I'm really excited to see our next donation, which should be coming, I think, next week. Very excited. Because I think it's important to understand that people do not understand how it works. They really believe that, you know, a percentage of everything that they buy, no matter what they do, is going to go to the charity of their choice. So that's a big push that we've had. And then, you know, Amazon provides some amazing tools. So working with your social media team to make sure those are timely. So one of the things we're having conversations around is geo-targeting back to school, because you know, we don't all start school at the exact same time. So recognizing and understanding that people are shopping at different times for different reasons, and trying to target that as well.
Yeah, I think two things that we've been doing is, one is just trying to integrate Amazon Smiles into our campaigns. So for example, you know, holiday, year end, we're talking a lot about, you know, ways to give back, making sure that Amazon Smile is a key message there. And then also during the disaster fundraising space, trying to be a little bit creative in how we talk about Amazon Smile. So one of the biggest requests we get is people who want to donate stuff. And a lot of time it's stuff that we don't want, right? They want to clean out their closet, they want to fill up a truck, they want to, you know, but they want to help. And so, you know, taking that really positive emotion and giving them something else that they can do as an alternative. So the charity list that we, you know, heard about earlier today, but also just encouraging them to shop at Amazon Smile. You know, there's a lot of creative ways and things that they can do in that moment where they're feeling passionate and emotional about something, and just redirecting that generosity. So I think those are a couple of things that we've been doing.
Similarly to us, and the other thing too is the light bulb moment of, hey, does everybody within my organization use Amazon Smile? Like, have we promoted this enough to our own people? And so, we've been doing an internal campaign as well alongside, similar to these other folks, looking at when do we target certain times of the year, end of the year holiday, school, going back to school. We also still at the Nature Conservancy, because our members also love paper still, we have a really beautiful magazine, and so we're starting to do some advertorials within the magazine that talk a bit about the Smile program and about what that's going to support within the organization, and just encouraging folks that pick up that magazine to also sign up for it through that too.
Go ahead.
So our social media is reserved for most of our programming, so that when we do promote or speak about a corporate partner, it's a rare thing, so like we get a lot more of an attention to that. So we do promote and thank Amazon Smile at particular times throughout the year as well. And recently we're able to do in print. So thank you. And we're able to, and since we have an older population as well, they're not on digital as much, but we have our paper newsletter that goes out to over 200,000 donors. And so that's like in other ways to give. And also not just tech companies, but those companies that want to keep their employees in the building all day and feed them and provide all their services for them. Those are big Amazon buyers. We remind them when we're doing communications to those employees, hey, by the way, you can also support us by shopping through Amazon Smile, even though there might be a competitor, but it's always, that's the audience. That's one of the creative ways. Yeah.
I think it's hard because when, as a fundraiser, I'm either asking someone to make a donation directly to our organization where we keep the full amount, or Amazon Smile. And when I first, we first started working with Amazon, I was like, well, how am I going to ever figure out how to do both? But the reality is they're not mutually exclusive. And so the three ways we think about Smile are seasonality, sequential, and personalization. So in seasonality, it's what are the times when our consumers are shopping online the most? And that's when you can start to integrate that type of content into your editorial calendars. The second around sequential is, okay, so maybe someone makes a donation to the American Cancer Society, and in their thank you email, we say, here's other ways to support. And so instead of saying it's one or the other, it's, hey, you can do it all. And then the third is around personalization. So if someone isn't a shopper or they're not a donor, we can figure out, and it depends on the systems that you use to be able to do this, but create personalized messaging, test it out, see what works and what doesn't, and then you can start to create segment clusters and how to market to those people specifically. So seasonal, sequential, personalization.
That's great.
Very cool.
We're all going to steal that.
I just made that up. I love it.
So we have another question, mic number 2.
Hi. I really liked what Laurence had to say about how we could really use some help with technology. It's expensive. And Jen, what you said about altering our asks for our corporate partners, not just thinking about money. So I wondered if y'all could share some examples that your orgs have of getting some of those more in-kind tech innovation, in-kind donations, if you will, from corporate partners of yours or from Amazon.
Yeah. I can talk. You guys go for it.
Go ahead.
So we have a partnership with MasterCard. I don't even know if I'm allowed to talk about this with Amazon here, but I'm going to. We're all friends. And so we've been talking to them about integrating MasterPass for a while. And again, we're a nonprofit, and it costs money to create the technology to integrate that into our systems. And so as part of our negotiations, we asked that they fund the integration with using a third party that we could choose to actually do that integration. And so again, it was mutually beneficial for all of us, but they got what they wanted, we got what we wanted, which was the money to integrate MasterPass to see if it worked or not. And that's kind of how we've used some of those different technology solutions. That's the way I would think about it too, like what can we do for you and what do we need, and then create the contracts based off of that.
Well, similarly, I'm like, am I allowed to talk about this?
Yeah, I'm like, don't tweet that.
Nobody's listening, we're not.
So,
that's fair.
No one's following me on Twitter, so don't worry about it. Similar to so at the Nature Conservancy, we have a longstanding relationship with Microsoft. And so we've worked with them on everything from consumer education campaigns around ocean conservation to, the recent Minecraft game just launched this awesome underwater environment planting corals. And so they're planting corals with Nature Conservancy while people are playing in the game. So we've got all these really great kind of consumery things, and there's money coming, and there's brand visibility, and there's advertising value. In addition to that, we've made such great relationships within the organization that they're unlocking opportunities for us all over the place. So it's like, when it comes to, corporate giving, or when it comes to, looking at the cloud and helping us to figure out how our mapping technology and, all of the science and data that we are collecting all around the world, like how can our folks in, Indonesia access things that are coming out of, Colorado that may be somehow applicable. And so helping us to look at artificial intelligence and different ways of mapping, and then how to use that data to help us do our work better in one place, but then replicate it in all of these other places. It was like millions of dollars worth of in-kind brain power that we would have never received had we not just sat down with the people who were interested in helping to support our ocean work and say, we're really struggling with this challenge in our mapping ocean wealth program. We're really struggling with how to, we have this certain form of technology, but the integration is not working. Like, we're having some challenges. And they sat down with us for hours and hours at different periods of time and provided all of this in-kind value, again, in brain power and also in kind of cloud support. But yeah, it was just building really good relationships. And I think, too, being a really good partner. Being a nonprofit doesn't mean that you don't have to deliver at the level that a company is expecting that their own employees will deliver. It's like you have to have metrics, you have to have return on investment, you have to have reporting, you have to be responsive. And I just think in having that mentality of we're equals here, we're bringing value and so are you, allows you to kind of build stronger relationships and then unlock more and more opportunities.
I would just chime on with two things with that. One, we've had great success with a corporate advisory council that we have and manage. And so really twice a year, we're inviting about 20 of our closest corporate partners to come into town. They meet with our CEO. And the purpose of that is to really take them some of our challenges and ask for their advice and input, because we had so many of our corporate partners who wanted to do that, who said, we believe in the Red Cross. We want to help you improve the organization. So that's been really effective. And then secondly, I would just offer a tip that we found for our IT in kind, having the close relationships internally has been critical to having those donations work. To just make sure that, our IT department, they don't go out and put an RFP out, because once that happens, you'll never be able to get a donation of that item. It's dead. It's in the sales part of the organization. So just really working closely together, making sure that you're coordinated, you understand their needs, you have enough time to actually, go out and try to secure it as a donation before they go out and try to put it into the purchasing channel would be one tip I would offer.
Yeah, and the only thing I would just add to that is also become a really good listener, because some of that brain power that you want to use comes from unusual places. We have a corporate partner who works in the clothing and retail sector, and it just happened to turn out that they have a couple of people that are really passionate about blockchain. Don't ask me anything about blockchain, but I'll just say they're really passionate about blockchain. And so we partnered them with a group internally who's really focused on land rights. And how do we transform in communities around the world that the government is not wholly stable with large documentation and things like that, but yet we're asking farmers to make improvements to their land for long-term value, but that land can be taken away at any moment in time if they don't own that land. So how do we think about land rights differently? And does blockchain give us the solution to address some of those problems? I don't know yet. I don't know anything about blockchain except to be able to say blockchain and be like, that's awesome. But I mean, it was just so surprising. I mean, I never would have approached that partner with that kind of question or ask, and because I didn't even know that was being worked on inside our organization, and I never would have guessed that this partner would have a person who is passionate about this area.
So we've got time for one more question. There aren't any more. No, nobody's standing around. Just checking. Okay, I'll ask a question then. Can you give us an example of a really successful campaign that your organization ran recently, and what made it successful?
Ooh, I love that one. I'm happy to start. So we just had a blood campaign that was called Missing Types. And so what we did is we looked at asking partners, individuals, even other organizations to take the A's, B's, and O's out of their name and logos for a given campaign period. So A, B, and O are the blood types, if you don't already know. And the purpose of this campaign was to really raise awareness around the need for blood donations. And it was a summertime campaign. That's when we see a real dip in blood donations. People are on vacation. A lot of our blood donations come from high schools and colleges. They're not in school. And so it was really around increasing the need and the urgency around blood donations. And so I think some of the things that made this campaign a success, one, it was kind of cool, right? It was a fun idea. People weren't expecting it. It was catchy. So it was, easy to get people excited about it. We also, instead of leading with a fundraising ask, we led with a blood donation ask. And so to go to some of our corporate partners and ask that they change their logo and they just talk about this really volunteer opportunity without charging any sort of fee was really nice to be able to take that sort of opportunity. So not asking them to give us money, but asking for the brand and asking for the promotional value. So I think that was a real success. And for us, it was actually also one of the first times we've done a campaign that moved kind of across lines of our organization. So where we've really been out talking about blood, but doing that through our fundraising channels. So it was really exciting. We did it for the first year. We actually launched the idea in February, and the campaign ran in June. So in a very quick amount of time, we were able to get about 20 big corporate brands participate in the campaign, and we're looking forward to continuing it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool. Any others?
I'll jump in with one I'm excited about because it's happening right now. And I don't think we have the same level of sort of high profile. But we were really excited. We have a partnership with Dylan's Candy Bar. And Dylan, actually, what we loved about it is it combines sort of an influencer, a physical product that was manifesting from our farmers, and then cause marketing and high visibility with consumer PR. So Dylan Lauren is her own lifestyle brand. And she runs Dylan's Candy Bar, and so she visited our projects in Ecuador in order to meet the farmers that are actually actively working in cultivation of cocoa, because she wanted to understand more about the people that are behind the brands that she sells. So it allowed us to take, what is a traditional activity for us, bringing someone who can influence to the field to see our projects in action, but then where she really wanted to manifest that self was in her stores with physical product that gives back to Heifer and our work specifically in Ecuador. So we were able to kind of see the full circle there, which was just really exciting.
Very cool. Well, I can't believe it, but we are out of time. That hour has just flown by. That's in a huge part to the fantastic questions from the audience. So thank you, audience. And of course, a huge thank you to our panelists today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.